Gonna give you a brief review of Thank You for Your Service, the brand new Jason Hall directed film. Jason Hall was also the writer of this movie. He was the writer of American Sniper as well. It was just a week ago. And I was talking about how great Miles Teller was in Only the Brave. And by now you should know. I keep saying this. By now you should know that Miles Teller is one of the best actors of our time right now. By now you should know that Miles Teller will have an Oscar in 5 years or less. Give it time. By now you should know that Miles Teller is one of the most talented and versatile actors of this generation. And the fact that he is so young only adds to it. In Thank You for Your Service, he plays Adam Schumann, a soldier returning home from Iraq with his two buddies, one of whom is a friend of his who is now suffering memory loss. His name is Tasolo. He's played by Balua Coyle, and in addition to his buddy Billy Waller, played by Joe Cole, who returns home hoping to see his fiance and daughter, but comes home to an empty house. Teller's Adam is easily the most stable of everybody, but he is still harboring demons. He has a hard time talking to his wife, played by Halle Bennett. He has a hard time connecting with his daughter and his infant son. He is really held back and really off-put by the presence of the worn face of Amanda Doster, played by a very well-cast, surprising Amy Schumer, who's in this movie. Miles Teller's kind of seeing her on a regular basis, and he's reminded of the death of his close friend who was a first-class sergeant. But basically, the film revolves around Adam Schumann's sort of assimilation back in everyday life. Both him and his two friends are suffering from some form of post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, Adam is the most stable of them all, most outwardly stable, but he is still very, very traumatized by the events that happen, and he doesn't talk it out with his wife. He operates sort of in secrecy. He's trying to get his benefits from the VA, from the Department of Veteran Affairs, which gets very difficult for him as well. But there's a lot going on in this movie. It's not even that long. It's an hour and 48 minutes. It's not even that long, but there's a lot to this movie. And there's a lot of good performances, and there's a lot of good themes embedded in this film. First off, I'm just going to say this right now. The film doesn't address the way soldiers are victims of cruel manipulation and cheap pathos when they return home, like Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk did. That was a great film that came out last year. Came out about a year ago from now. Ang Lee directed. Very well done movie. Steve Martin was in it. Can't recommend Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk enough. Such a great film. It doesn't go as far as to that movie in terms of themes, but it has echoes of the subtext, and it also doesn't sacrifice the core of its story for sort of empty nationalism and long-winded combat scenes, kind of like American Sniper did. That was another movie that Jason Hall wrote. He didn't direct. Clint Eastwood directed that. But the film really succeeds in treading the middle ground of being a good gun cry movie and a meaningful humanization of how war becomes, almost paradoxically, becomes every man for himself once the plane touches down and the soldiers have to make that reassimilation back into everyday life. Again, Teller needs no introduction. Terrific role. Hall's camera clearly lingering on his facial expressions. A really good scene comes between him and Bennett, him and his wife, when they're sitting in the psychiatrist's office, and it's a little bit of a longer take than you expect, a longer take on him and his wife mistakes a potential job that the psychiatrist suggests for her husband as one on a gun range when it's actually a tank range, and the mistake prompts a couple jabs at one another when the two clearly hold back tears and they suppress the pain with a little bit of humor. It's moments like that that make this movie so good. It's moments like that that make things that make things very human and make things very it conveys, it makes it very something that's easy to convey to audiences as well. Hall's movie American Sniper, as I'm sure you know, merited a lot of Oscar nominations the year it came out. A lot of controversy too. I was kind of lukewarm on the movie. I thought it was structurally kind of messy. I thought there were some interesting moments of humanization. I thought some of the PTSD angle that apparently was in Chris Kyle's book more so than it was in the movie. I thought that was the most interesting stuff in it. But The thing about Thank You for Your Service, it's not only a better film, but it's a film that I think will resonate with more soldiers, and hopefully give those who are so casual to throw around their support for veterans and chomp at the bit anytime some sort of political discussion comes up or some sort of issue of social conscience comes up or whatnot. I hope it gives those people that throw around veterans as kind of a buzzword something to look beyond the men in the uniform for when they come home. Hall's working off of David Finkel's novel of the same name, Thank You for Your Service, and it's quick to show the problematic side of being a soldier too. The overcrowded and often unhelpful state of VA offices around the world and stuff like that, many of which are criminally understaffed, accustomed to putting veterans on lengthy waiting lists that render them helpless and without necessary treatment for months. You watch this movie, you watch the way that Hall portrays it, and it's not far. I mean, you hear these stories all the time, and the treatment of a lot of these guys, a total unconscionable disgrace, and it really is well shown in this movie as well. Another good performance is by the aforementioned Bellew Coyle, who's in the film. He's a young New Zealand actor who hasn't really gotten a big role. He's done a lot of play acting, but he's very good. There's a glow in his face, as I mentioned in my review, and a relaxation and a coolness to his character that washes over on him whenever you see him on screen with Teller. But then when Teller is not in the room with him, the actor and the character become a very different man, a violent man with a lot of rage built up. There's a lot of good in this movie. It's not great. I hesitate to call it great. It's sometimes too much of a montage movie where it's reliant on 2 or 3 quickly paced scenes that kind of skate by without much detail or development. That's a problem. I think it kind of, in moments when it's allowed to breathe, when Hall allows the characters to breathe and kind of operate humanly, it allows for the movie to be textured and very respectful. But when it winds up showing like 3 scenes very quickly, one after another, in about a minute and a half, then it winds up getting a little hasty. So that's when it winds up getting a little bit too messy in that respect, or I think, or it tries to skate by and not give us the full picture. But I really do give Thank You for Your Service 3 out of 4 stars. It's a good film. It's sad that nobody's really checking it out. I knew it probably wasn't going to do too well over the weekend just because it's Halloween weekend, but I do recommend Thank You for Your Service 3 out of 4 stars.